Since Obi-Wan Kenobi wrapped last June 22nd, a lot of could-have-been stories came to light regarding the latest Star Wars series, much to the shock of the fans. And probably one of the most shocking pieces of info about this is that an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie trilogy was planned before the Disney Plus series. For today's video, we'll be looking into this surprising revelation, so make sure you stay tuned. Before Disney Plus, a trilogy of Obi-Wan Kenobi films was supposed to be in the works, but got scrapped. Following the conclusion of Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney Plus, Ewan McGregor reprises the role of the title character and tells us the tale of how he was ejected from Tatooine between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, putting him against Darth Vader, his former Padawan student. Fans found the entire series to be very engaging, and it set new marks for streaming platform viewing. The show would have made a better plot as a standalone movie, according to some Star Wars fans, despite its popularity, and that was the initial intent of Lucasfilm. Before switching to an episodic format with the debut of Disney Plus in 2019, Daldry and Hossein Amini were hired to direct and write the movie, respectively. After that, Joby Harold was hired to take over as chief writer, laying the groundwork for the version that director Deborah Chow ultimately brought to Disney Plus. The first writer of the project has now spoken out about how his original vision for the story of Obi-Wan Kenobi included not just one, but 3 theatrical features. Stuart Beattie, Obi-Wan Kenobi's writer, revealed in an interview that the show was originally made as a film trilogy. Stuart Beattie, who wrote episodes 1 through 3 of the Obi-Wan Kenobi television series and the season finale, spoke exclusively with Nathan Johnson of The Direct about his involvement in the Ewan McGregor-starring film and how it was originally envisioned as a full trilogy. Beattie acknowledged that he never worked with the series writers and that he merely authored the screenplay for the original feature film that served as the inspiration for the series, citing Solo's box office success as the reason the Kenobi film was never produced. "I wrote the film that they based the show on," Beattie explained about his involvement. "So yeah, I spent like a year and a half working on it. And then when the decision was made not to make any more spin-off films after Solo came out, I left the project and went on to other things. Joby came on and took my scripts and turned it from 2 hours into 6. So I did not work with them at all. I just got credit for the episodes because it was all my stuff." Beattie also disclosed that in his initial pitch to Lucasfilm in 2016, he presented them with 3 stories for Obi-Wan Kenobi, the first of which became the first season of the television show and featured Reva's death, and the second of which anticipated the Jedi Master's lead-up to A New Hope. You might be asking, what are these 3 stories for Obi-Wan Kenobi? And lucky for you, we have the answer to that, so make sure you tune in to know all about it. So what are these stories Beattie pitched for the Obi-Wan Kenobi trilogy films? Of course, the acclaimed writer took the time to explain the storyline for the famed Jedi, interconnecting it with what's canon and at the same time creating a new story exclusively for Obi-Wan. He claimed that he had 3 stories in mind when he approached Lucasfilm with his Obi-Wan proposal, because the character must go through 3 separate evolutions before becoming Ben from Obi-Wan. Naturally, the first film, which was the television program, in some ways required Obi-Wan to submit to the Force's will, to convey and yield his will to the Force and leave the child alone. The second story this time was about Obi-Wan's realization that he's willing to sacrifice himself. The second film, which continued Obi-Wan's quest, considered Kenobi's ultimate destination, which is his willingness to sacrifice himself. That perhaps the most emotional moment in all of Obi-Wan's story is when he gives his life in A New Hope, which is undoubtedly a magnificent moment and moved the audience to tears. But if you stop and think about it, it's a pretty sudden thing to just kind of go be fighting a guy, to see Luke and go, "I'm gonna die." You know, that to me required some forethought. That required pre-acceptance that this was going to happen, Beattie said of the second story. The second story highlights one of those universal things everyone struggles with, which is to come to terms with their own mortality. According to Beattie, the writer said that this was the second step of the evolution of Obi-Wan's evolution for him. The character now has to come to terms with his own mortality somehow in a prophecy. This could even be made to come true via Qui Gon telling him that there will come a moment when Obi-Wan will have to sacrifice himself for the good. To this, Obi-Wan scoffs and denies it, explaining that he's only there to lend a hand. The writer aimed to bring Obi-Wan to the realization that he must eventually die, and that he will do so voluntarily at a critical juncture, of which this pivotal event that Beattie talks so much about occurs in A New Hope. Obi-Wan now understands that he has previously made this journey and has been waiting for this opportunity, which explains how he was able to make it so effortlessly, to make the sacrifice and die. If Beattie had been allowed to do so, this would have been the character evolution he would have taken Obi-Wan Obi-Wan on since it is really interesting and universal, as well as being the second evolution, film, and story. Beattie stated that it was initially a full trilogy. When asked if the 3 stories he had prepared meant that the goal was to make 3 films. The writer also claimed that McGregor and Lucasfilm supported the idea and that everyone was ready to go, with everyone eager to spread the word since it is a great story to share. He said that Ewan McGregor is just so fantastic and is the appropriate age to play Obi-Wan, making the character a perfect one. And despite their enthusiasm for the project, they are in a position where they cannot make decisions of this sort. Beattie was devastated to learn that the project, which he described as dying to be done as a movie, was no longer moving forward. Unfortunately, it was Solo that changed the direction of the system. I like Solo personally, but it hadn't made a lot of money, Beattie said in a disappointing tone. It is crazy in some ways to think about how it was directed by one of the best filmmakers working today, but just because it didn't hit a certain number, they just had to rethink. And again, way above my pay grade, but it certainly crushed us. Despite being absolutely devastated by the news, the Obi-Wan writer acknowledged that it is common in this industry, which has its highs and its lows. Finally, Beattie expressed his satisfaction that the Obi-Wan series was produced and his pride in having his story recounted and given credit for it. But at the end of the day, all he wanted was for his movies to be made. Hearing all these made us want to see what Stuart Beattie, as well as the cast and Lucasfilm, would have made with these stories in mind. But alas, we already have the series with us, so we might as well hope that a second season for Obi-Wan Kenobi will pull through, where we get to see more of this legendary Jedi's adventures. As for the other half of the fandom, they think that Obi-Wan Kenobi would have been better as a standalone film. Despite its flaws, Obi-Wan Kenobi's series finale was a huge success. The series featured more than its fair share of plot holes, Part 6 included, but many may be disregarded because the program consistently hit the mark. To wrap up the stories of the characters on the program, Kenobi had to hit all of the key emotional notes, and it surely did. One of the best scenes in Star Wars was when Obi-Wan and Vader, with his face uncovered, were talking. Many people had nightmares about a repeat of the Luke Skywalker incident in The Last Jedi, when Ewan McGregor said that fans would discover Obi-Wan to be broken when the series began. But now that the program is over, it's safe to conclude that Obi-Wan Kenobi did a flawless job of portraying a hero who had lost faith and regained it. It was primarily thanks to the hope shown by Anakin Skywalker's offspring that Kenobi was able to regain trust in the Jedi path. Above all, the series' conclusion was satisfactory. It's fair to argue that Obi-Wan Kenobi was everything that Star Wars needed to succeed. The endeavor was a wonderful addition to the far-off galaxy. When new movies are released, there is a wonderful build-up. People are eager to spend incomprehensible sums of monies on souvenirs, and there were cheers when the phrase "a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away" appears on movie screens. It's a singular experience. There are many other reasons, but unfortunately, we've already run out of time. That's it for today's video, and before you go, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like these. We'll see you again next time, and thanks for watching.